You know, diners rarely get to see what goes on behind the scenes and really connect with the chef and what they're doing and their artistry behind the food. And for me, that moment at Resident was really special, very intricate and very intimate.
We create these memorable nights of conversation and connection, just like you would if you were entertaining 10 or 15 family members at a dinner. That's why I started Resident, to create a paradigm where the back of house is front and center.
The special thing about Resident is it gives the guests the chance to connect with the face behind the food. The chefs introduce each course.
You can talk with customers about the dishes and your inspiration. You have the opportunity to really show who you are as a chef.
I think what really stood out to me about the whole experience was that the chef's storytelling really brought their dishes to life in a way that I hadn't seen before.
To not only be connected with the food in that way, but with the chef behind the food in that way was very, very unique. It's unlike anything else that's happening in New York City at this time.
Hello everyone and welcome to Host Kitchen's Heat Up. I'm Geoff Pence, Head of Global Sales and Marketing from Joel, and I'm honored to introduce this session. Today's panel explores how the heart of the restaurant, the kitchen, is being transformed in totally new ways to power up innovative business models and generating exciting new revenue streams. Here at Joel, we're focused on helping restaurants master digital food safety. So we're especially excited to hear how this incredible group of speakers is bringing further innovation to their brand's kitchens. Today's session is being moderated by Angela Diffley, co-founder of Restaurant Technology Network, and featuring panelists Jeff Alexander, President and CEO of WowBow, Sherri Landry, CMO of CEC Entertainment, and Brian Mommsen, CEO of Resident. Please welcome our panelists.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Restaurant Next. I have a great panel lineup today. I think this is going to be a really hot session, all puns intended. This is Host Kitchen's Heat Up, and we are so excited to have three really interesting concepts to talk about. My panelists include Jeff Alexander here, President and CEO of WowBow. Hi, Jeff.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the program. And Sherri Landry is the Chief Marketing Officer of CEC Entertainment. Hi, Sherri.
Hi, Angela.
Thanks for joining us. And then we have Brian Mommsen, who's the founder and CEO of Resident. Hi, Brian.
Hey, what's up? Thanks for having me. How you doing?
Good. Thank you all for joining me so much. So I think we'll just kick this off by asking you guys to explain a little bit about your brands, because some of them are really unique and interesting, and some of them are beloved brands that may have a new and interesting twist. So give us a little bit of background on the brand itself and what your role is. Brian, why don't we start with you?
Awesome. So thank you for the introduction. I'm the founder and CEO of Resident. I launched the company in 2018 as a culinary platform that connects diners with the faces behind the food. We bring Michelin-trained chefs to luxury residential spaces for chef's table style culinary events, with the chef personally introducing each course and the inspiration behind each of the dishes. So by having the chef play host, it feels more like a dinner party than a restaurant. And guests really enjoy getting to know the room as well as getting to know the chef during the course of the meals. And by rethinking how, where, and when we operate, we're creating a more sustainable model that builds value for the chefs, our real estate partners, and our diners in a manner that creates awesome alignment. So that's what we're working on.
That's great. That's super exciting. And we are going to hear a lot more about your concept as we move through the panel today. Jeff, why don't we go to you next?
Sure, thank you. And everybody who's dialing in and listening in, I hope everyone is safe and well during these difficult times. My name is Jeff Alexander. I'm the President and CEO of WowBow. We're a fast casual Asian concept started back in 2003 based in Chicago. We have 5 locations here in Chicago, 6 airport locations. And as of April of this year, we launched a dark kitchen program in which any operator can serve our product out their back door via third-party delivery. And as of yesterday, as of the September 22nd, we are now at 72 units. So we're going to be we'll probably hit the 100 mark in middle of October, which will be 6.5 months. We would have grown from 0 to 100 with this endeavor.
Fantastic. Wow.
Wow.
You're running really fast. Wow, bow. That's right. And Sherri, let's go to you at CEC Entertainment.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sherri Landry. I am the Chief Marketing Officer for CEC Entertainment, which is home to 3 distinct brands. There's a brand that's likely you've celebrated a child's birthday or been there for a after soccer celebration called Chuck E. Cheese. We are the #1 family entertainment brand, and our goal every day is to kind of bring happiness and kiddom to families around the globe. The second brand is called Peter Piper Pizza. It is a regional brand that is a food first brand, and if you've ever spent any time in the Phoenix, Arizona area, or El Paso, or maybe even the valley part of Texas, you've had a chance to taste Peter Piper Pizza. That's a tongue twister, isn't it? And then the third brand is Pasquale's Pizza and Wings, which is our virtual brand that we launched this year as a way to bring the new taste, a mature taste of CEC franchise to mature adults across the country. So I'm responsible for overseeing all things marketing and developing strategic plans across these very 3 different brands. Of course, with the goal of being able to satisfy the needs of consumers across the different need states and different life stages that you might have.
Great. That's a fantastic summary. So let's dive in a little deeper to all of these concepts and talk a little bit about how they came to life, particularly the newer concepts and the newer way of doing business for you, Geoff. So Geoff, we could just start with you jumping in, because I know you said, obviously you had a brand first and you had a brick and mortar, and now you're doing the dark kitchens. So how did that concept come to life within your brand, and how did it spark? And it was a while back, right? You guys were the first people doing this.
I don't want to take the claim for it, but we believe we're one of the fastest growing with it. So the concept started in 2003, and over its life, between now and then, we've done brick and mortar, college campuses, airport locations, MLB, NHL, NBA, NFL, food trucks, music venues. We have a grocery line where we're in over 300 grocery stores with our product. So we've done all these different ways to grow our brand, our name, and the concept. And back in November of 2019, the leadership team, we were sitting around talking about what's next, what do we want to do? And we had this idea that why couldn't another restaurant sell the product out its back door, third-party delivery? We already have national distribution. Our product is made frozen for us, so we can get it basically anywhere. It's done by steam, which is the cleanest way of cooking, and all it requires is hot water. No hood is needed. And because we're ethnic, being Asian, we have an appeal that most people can't cook, right? Not everyone can just start making Asian food. So we started with this idea of November.
It's a little intimidating.
It's extremely intimidating. It's not something that most people have been exposed to.
Mm-hmm.
So we started with this idea in November. By January, we had created an online training portal. We had created reference manuals, SOPs, a marketing playbook, and we launched with a sister restaurant in the suburbs of Chicago. And that restaurant ended up getting hit by COVID and had to close for a few weeks. But during that time, we learned a lot about the business. And we also started talking to other players, and our first other partners came on board in April. And as I said earlier, now in just about 6 months, we've opened over 70 stores. They are all over the country. I think we're in about 48 different cities with many different operators. Some are 1-unit independents and some are multi-unit chains. And our goal is for every operator to achieve $2,000 a week in sales by week 6, which translates to $100K a year in top line sales. We created a menu that is food and packaging to equal 36%, and with an average guess of 25% for third-party commissions. It allows for 40% flow through down to the bottom line. So on 100K in sales, you make $40,000. It pays rent, it keeps the lights on, it pays managers. And we have some locations that are doing over $6,000 a week. And so you can quickly do the math on what their run rate is and their 40%. It's pretty exciting what we're doing.
Very exciting. Yes. The concept of a dark kitchen didn't exist a year ago, you know, so
yeah,
this is all new, and certainly Resident didn't exist, Brian. So tell us a little bit more about Resident. The concept is so unique, and it is the first I've heard of anything like it. You are exclusive to the New York area right now. Is that correct?
Yes, we are. You know, we started in New York, and we're building a bunch of great momentum here that will eventually translate into us moving into, you know, cities such as San Francisco, Miami, and as well as, you know, eventually internationally. But, you know, right now we're a small team, and, you know, New York's a very competitive city in a variety of different ways. And it's a large city that allows us to further define our identity, build momentum. We have clients asking us and real estate partners asking us to go into other cities. And we, you know, hopefully we'll do that, you know, over the course of 2021 or 2022.
Right. And so
what we're focused on,
yeah,
I would say that, you know, what's new and different about our concept, I mean, we're reimagining the restaurant model, right? So specifically, I would say we're focused on the fine dining model. You know, rent, CapEx, these are big headwinds for, you know, someone considering opening up a fine dining restaurant. And we're solving for many of the headwinds involving those fixed costs that restaurants face when opening. Instead of renting space, for example, we're partnering with a luxury real estate developer to offer a restaurant residency program as an amenity within its building. So tenants would get preferential access and pricing to our events, and we get free space to store our stuff and manage our operation. And we're effectively only, you know, getting paid when we host events in that space. So by really choosing when we operate and only serving a tasting menu that involves pre-selling all our events, you know, we eliminate food waste, we eliminate labor waste, and we reduce our CapEx and rent to zero. And that makes for a really efficient operation that can expand the margins of a fine dining operation. And I think scaling via an asset-light platform is the way to go, given the current F&B landscape. On the chef side of the equation, with specifically restaurants, as you asked, you know, a chef can engage us that, you know, is working in a Michelin star restaurant 5 days a week, because we're creating a really turnkey ability for them to hop on our platform and cook a dinner, you know, on their weekend, on their off day, right? We are removing the need for them to source space, source guest list, you know, figure out ticketing, deal with staffing. We really equipment, we really do everything that allows them to be able to streamline their experience and cut down the workload in terms of the number of hours they have to commit to that dinner. So we have chefs that work with us on, let's say, you know, a couple dinners a month on their off days. We have chefs that are building their own brands that want to work with us more, you know, more frequently. Mm-hmm. Now, with regards to restaurants specifically, I ask a simple question, right? Let's say you're running a successful restaurant that's an independent restaurant, like maybe you've even won a Michelin star, right? And you're evaluating going into another market. Well, you know, let's say that you're a restaurant in San Francisco that wants a presence in New York. To be able to find a location that's suitable, to be able to build out the CapEx of that space and also sign, let's say, oftentimes a 3, 4, 5-year rent commitment, there's a significant financial investment there before you've ever served the first meal. Instead, why don't you provide us a talented member of your staff to be able to partner with us on a location in New York, such that you come into a multifamily luxury building that has a private dining room set up to be able to, you know, do a cross promote where we are, you know, highlighting your brand, the culinary style, the food cuisine that you serve at your restaurant, and you learn more about the New York audience. You know, effectively work with us on a profit share such that you're eliminating all the upfront costs and learning more about that market before you eventually decide maybe to do a brick and mortar in that market, or maybe you never do. And so I think that these are the ways that we could establish relationships with restaurants and work in a very symbiotic fashion to, you know, promote their success.
I think that's great. I mean, as I said, all three of you are talking right now. I just, the common thread here is like no or low overhead, right? So moving to you, Sherri, I mean, when you think about what you guys are doing with Pasquale's, would you call that a virtual brand? Everyone's calling things so many different things these days. I just want to make sure I'm calling it what it is.
It is interesting because you do hear different nomenclature, which very similarly, the idea is to have a brand that can exist within the current infrastructure of another brand, particularly restaurant business. It utilizes, the hard costs, the ovens, the refrigerators, the labor, without having to have that incremental cost as being part of the startup cost, or frankly, part of the operating cost long term. And for us, Pasquale's, one of the key parts of that business really is that we're able to leverage the infrastructure of Chuck E. Cheese. And it will be very difficult, particularly in today's environment, to launch another pizza brand, right? Another pizza and wings brand, when you think about the cost of brick and mortar, the cost of infrastructure, the cost of bringing on new teams, when we have it all there. And just like many other brands that exist who have found this new way of bringing life to the revenue stream, it's really about finding what the consumer need is, filling the space and utilizing what you have to do that. And you may not, be able to do that in a current brand set. It might not make sense, right? Sometimes brands make the mistake of trying to extend their brands too far. But this thing called a virtual kitchen or a ghost kitchen allows you to do that and bring some life, some ingenuity to the table in a way that just makes a whole lot of financial sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And Geoff, I'd like to ask you, she just mentioned virtual kitchen, host kitchen, ghost kitchen. You mentioned dark kitchen, resident. We don't even know what to call you. You're so far outside the box. So let's see what you think, Geoff, about all these terms and what you obviously dark kitchen is what you called it, right?
Yes.
With Wow.
So back in 2017, so 3 years ago, we opened up an inside cloud kitchen in LA from Chicago, right? We did the ghost kitchen environment, and we learned a lot about it. We learned about the marketing of opening a brand out in a different market that doesn't have a storefront. We learned about the algorithms involved with the third-party operators. We learned about the labor involved, how to operate in that small environment. And from that learnings allowed us to do what we're doing now. And the reason why we're calling dark kitchens is we are allowing operators to take part of the restaurant that is dark, right? You're not using your entire kitchen line right now because either your business is down or you're only allowed 25% capacity or you're doing carry out only. And again, we do not require a hood. So if your restaurant's not open for business, we could be in the middle of your dining room because we're just doing steam, right? So we went with dark because it is not visible to the diner, number one, and we're using dark areas of the kitchen. And the opportunities that this brings to operators right now, right? The fact that you're doing X amount of dollars and for little to zero additional labor, right? You're not adding any more rent, you're not paying any more electricity, there's really no more overhead. For our brand, the two things that we bring, number one, is because the product's frozen and you're thawing it out and cooking, you don't have literally zero waste because you just need what you need. And if you don't use it, it's got a shelf life until you do use it up. The second thing is with these virtual brands that are being created, and no disrespect to anyone out there, it is not easy to do because you don't have a story behind you. You're not existing. You can't be touched and felt by the public. As a 17-year-old brand that we are, we have social media, right? We have followers, we have a story. You can find us if you Google us, right? We have websites, we have all this information that it makes us a little bit more validated to the public's eyes as opposed to someone trying to spring up. And when you just try to spring up, it's difficult to get the momentum under you. You're relying on those third parties and only those third parties to get your name out there.
Yeah, I'd love to talk a little bit about that. Go ahead, Sherri. You were going to mention something.
I just have to add on to Geoff's comment because right, wrong, or indifferent in how you look at it, one of the things that really allowed Pasquale's to leap pad is the equity with Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just kind of the reality. And so when people started talking about it, it was talking about it in the context of what is Chuck E. Cheese doing? And Chuck E. Cheese is a household name. And so, and we expected that to happen, but it gave us a nice pivot point where we could really leverage the equity of the Big Brother brand to really kickstart this new thing called Pasquale's in a smart way, and still leverage not just our infrastructure inside the four walls of our restaurants, but the infrastructure in our marketing teams, in terms of our IT teams, in terms of our social and digital teams. All of that was set and ready to go. So it made it easier, though I don't know while we were doing it if we thought it was necessarily easy, but it did make it easier than starting from ground zero and it being kind of a new thought and trying to launch something from the ground up.
Yeah.
Right. And with that, sorry, Sherri, with that, you had the ability in-house to practice even just the name, come up with logo, right? Come up with menu names, come up with menu descriptions. If you're an operator out there and you're doing hamburgers and say, I want to start doing chicken sandwiches virtually, it's not just making a recipe and starting to sell it online. Like, you need these other intricate things, and that's a time suck for an operator.
You have to build the brand.
Exactly. It is not easy to do. And the one who's the luckiest big brother in the room, well, not in the room on this call, is Chili's with their Just Wings, right? They have 1,000 Chili's, and they have the dollars in the pockets where they can turn on literally TV commercials for their chicken wings. And all of a sudden you think that this brand's been around for thousands of years because Chili's can put the money behind it. That is a difficult entry point for operators who are trying to go virtual right now.
Absolutely. And actually had a talk with Wade Allen the other day at Brinker.
Brinker.
And he talked all about It's Just Wings and what they're doing with that concept. And so it's fascinating. It's growing like wildfire because it can. As you mentioned, it has the infrastructure to do so and the marketing dollars to propel it into the consumer mindset. So with something like Resident, Brian, how are you getting the word out? I mean, obviously you're sort of niche in the way that you're trying to reach folks that are really interested in these culinary experiences and showcasing these chefs for their talent. So you've got a really sort of interesting market there. How are you reaching the people that would be most interested in doing what you're doing and experiencing what you're offering?
Yeah, so, what we're talking about in part here is alignment, right? And so, as a startup, what we need to be able to do to create momentum. I mean, sure, like any company can spend a fortune on advertising, right? Or acquiring clients. And for us, there's ways of doing that would be incredibly expensive that we're avoiding, right? For us, we have, two real types of relationships that I would say, kickstart a momentum. One is, we're leveraging chefs that are working at the best restaurants in the world, right? I mean, if you look at our roster of talent, we have the executive chef of the Nomad Hotel. We have, the second, third, fourth in command at the 11 Madison Parks of the world, the Le Bernardin, the Percés. And so what we can do is we're taking that talent, right? And we're creating a concept for them that is a platform of empowerment. So they are the ones in their off days, they are the ones leaving some of these restaurants and wanting to engage us for the betterment of their careers, right? And so that's powerful. Those restaurants want to stand behind those names because that is why in part their experience is so special on site, because these are, savants in the industry. Sure. And so we're drafting off of, their experience and their success within the industry to be able to make waves within F&B. Secondly, we have these relationships with real estate developers that have buildings that are full of affluent tenants. These are tenants living in, Midtown, downtown Manhattan, trendy areas of Brooklyn. And those tenants, like to go out, or at least did before COVID, and really, want to be able to have their ear to the ground. And trust the brands that their buildings are bringing in to be able to engage them and enjoy the experiences that result from that engagement. And so, those are two ways. I mean, Related, for example, has 23 buildings in the city. Dermot has a bunch, RXR, and these brands can extend our presence past New York. And so, by creating those relationships and those partnerships, we are able to connect to an audience that could, allow us to create a customer base with very low to negligible cost of consumer acquisition. And so that's really what we're focused on. Yes, we have a social presence. Yes, we love press and getting it to be able to expand our presence and tell our story. But, it's a snowball, and you start with a very small snowball of one snowflake, and it just keeps on steamrolling, and it takes time to build a brand. And, our opinion is you can't really force it, and you have to rely on the quality of your product. I mean, that's ultimately what gets you to where you want to be, right? And you have to never lose sight over that. We're maniacally focused on it. So those are some of the things that we're doing to create a larger presence and, make headway in terms of a larger audience.
Right. That's how I found you. I saw that you were quoted in an article, and I was like, what is this guy doing? It was so interesting to me that your whole business model is exactly what the industry wants to hear right now, is people that are innovating like this, like all of you. So I'd love to just kind of, with the time that we have left, which is only a few minutes, maybe ask you all to just offer any kind of advice to the folks listening out there. I mean, there are restaurants out there really trying to kind of get by. They're trying to diversify their revenue streams because, God forbid, we this last another however many months, or God forbid a year. We don't know what's going on. But I think that restaurants have all sort of come to the sort of difficult decision that it's not all about brick and mortar, right? You've got to think outside the four walls and sort of diversify and innovate your brand and look at all of these different revenue streams. So let's kind of go to you, Geoff, first, and what would you give words of wisdom or advice to our audience that's listening about, maybe they should do to think bigger than just what they've got going on today?
I'd rather hear what everyone else has for advice so I can learn from it. I think the important thing is two things. The first is the restaurant industry is the most resilient industry that's ever been. Anytime a crisis happens in the world, it hits the hospitality business like no other. And we always come back from it better and stronger. So operators have to hold their heads up and remember that we will come back. The second thing is leaders lead. And all the operators out there have been through some kind of difficulty in the past, and they have made it through. And we need to continue to be front facing and be leaders. Hospitality is more important now than ever before, right? Hospitable to each other, hospitable to your employees, hospitable to the delivery drivers, and of course to the guest. And we cannot lose sight of that. And what I'm seeing right now is I'm seeing a lot of full service restaurants out there are trying to save as much as they can, whether it's cutting staff or changing what they've done that got them to be known for who they are. As difficult it is, you can't change. You can't start giving less service. You can't start giving less portions. You have to still be, because people are choosing to come to you because of what made you who you are. So continue to be the leader that you have been. And at some point, fingers crossed, we will get through it.
Yes, great. And you, Sherri, what would you say to the folks listening today?
Well, I think Geoff summed it up really nicely.
Yeah.
I don't know how much more I could add, except I would say the restaurant and hospitality industry is what it is because of innovation, because of the desire to fulfill an unmet need. And if you take this time as you are trying to get through it to think about what are those nuggets that when your business was bustling and you're wishing, I wish I had time to go do this because I can see that there's a nugget here. Now's the time, because every person out there who's sitting at home, who's changed their work schedule, who's eating more and has gained their 20 during this time period, they're doing it because hospitality and food brings comfort. It is part of the fabric of how we live. It brings people together. And if you can remember that nugget when you were in the middle of that height of your time where you said, there's an opportunity for this, now's the time to go build it. and try it, because it only adds a revenue stream. And while it may be the thing to get you through to the day when we come back, and we will come back, it also can be the thing that when we come back, you will now have a whole new layer of your business that will keep you stronger going into the future.
Right, and something you didn't expect, maybe a revenue stream that you would have never had otherwise.
Absolutely.
And Brian, let's end on you. What kind of advice would you give, seeing that you are sort of a scrappy new startup in the space, kind of experiencing everything with fresh eyes?
Yeah, I mean, I think Geoff and Sherri summed it up quite nicely, but what I would add is that, there's 24 hours in a day, right? And I would look to figure out, if I had 4 walls that I was responsible for paying for, to find a way to monetize every single one of them. I mean, what is my restaurant doing in the mornings, in the afternoons? And it may not be anything related to F&B. I mean, there's a lot of concepts out there that you could leverage that have nothing to do with food, that could create a revenue stream that is the difference between you making it or breaking it. And so, these ideas, like the flexibility of entertaining radically different, ideas pertaining to your ability to weather the storm, I think is going to be one of the keys to defining your success. I mean, I think the biggest, areas of opportunity occur, the biggest times of opportunity occur in periods of dislocation. I mean, this is the time to build, this is the time to innovate, and this is the time to adapt. And so, I don't have all the answers. I don't think anybody on this panel does, but, if you're closed-minded in terms of shutting off possibilities, I think it, diminishes your chances of survival. And so that's all I would add.
Yeah, I think well said. And thank you all for sharing these unique and interesting concepts with the industry. I know that everyone probably listening has heard a little bit, maybe a little bit about WowBow, and obviously about Pasquale's and what you guys are doing at CEC, Sherri, but maybe not heard from you, Brian. So, and everything that you guys have shared here, you may have known a little bit about these concepts before, but now you know a lot more about kind of where they're going. And this is going to be an exciting rest of this year and into next year to watch all 3 of you and see all the great things and how your brands evolve. So best of luck, continued success.
Thank you so much to our panel. The kitchen truly is hotter than ever before. This has been a really inspiring journey through Restaurant Next with all of you, and frankly, I'm kind of sad to see it wrap up. Thinking back over the past 2 days, there have been a few ideas that have really risen to the top for me and summarize where our industry is moving. The pivot to off-premises dining has made delivery an even more critical aspect of this business. Native delivery, owned delivery, however you want to define it, it's now a major initiative for this industry, and as yesterday's panel discussed, could be central to a survival for an individual brand. RTN members are tackling this initiative in a work group. Please let us know if you'd like to be involved. We're also capturing more data than ever before as we serve customers. And for restaurants, the move to off-premise dining opened up opportunities to collect customer data that hadn't previously existed. Integration will be key to unlocking that data, of course. And that's where the push to open API standards can come into play. Watch for more news from the RTN community as our membership ushers forth the industry's first ever set of principles for open APIs. One of the lasting impacts of this pandemic will be the innovation that has emerged from its ashes. Restaurants are learning from this experience and have embraced new technologies and business models at rapid speed, and we won't stop. We hope you've enjoyed your time here inside of Restaurant Next. We'll be keeping the lights on and the doors open for the next 30 days, so please come back and explore anything that you may have missed. I think you'll be seeing a bit more from Restaurant Next in the future as we continue to bring you meaningful ways to connect and to learn. Until we see you again in person, I will see you here. Thanks.